Thank you very much. No, we are on time actually. We have till 3. No, he was not asking me about coffee, unfortunately. He was telling us that the minister will land at 3. So do we delay him? I don't think we have to delay him. So we'll just keep that in mind. We have 2 more speakers, so hopefully we'll have 15-20 minutes of discussions also.
What about the floor?
Yes, so we will have questions from the floor. So I turn to Mr. Nuruddin Tabet, advisor in the Moroccan Agency for International Cooperation. Mr. Tabet.
Thank you. So first I want to thank the Republic of India, RAS and UNESCO and all the partners for this great organization and receiving us. Thank you. Then I'm personally very grateful to be part of this panel where knowledge sharing is the main subject. And since it is information is the basis of knowledge sharing. And since then we have through our agency we have 3 main topics to share. First is the need of a high-level support and buy-in to be able to share information and expertise. And in this topic, for Morocco, we have actually we are very supported by our King Mohammed VI, who is personally involved in the South-South cooperation, making it as a strategic pillar of our foreign policy, and this make the thing more easy for us as a cooperation agency. Then the next point is the importance to have a working ecosystem. Every partner needs to know first the local partners with whom the work could be done, because as cooperation agency in Morocco we are not supposed to provide expertise. We rely on our different partners locally. Most of them are public institutions who actually detains the knowledge and share it with their peers in the country and outside the country. So this is a very important point as well, and then this enable Morocco today to be present in more than 100 of countries with specific working programs, including education, technical cooperation, human development projects, and humanitarian assistance. And for this point, we have some track record, including more tens of thousands of graduates from Moroccan universities and high schools, engineering, medicine, and so on. Currently, this year, we have 13,000 of foreign students, mainly from Africa. We have more than 80% of our working program and partnership within the continent of Africa. And regarding the knowledge sharing in technical cooperation as well, we have today we have trained more than 7,000 executive and partners, and coming from more than 50 countries and within like 20 of different programs. Then the third key point for a successful knowledge sharing is we think that having a methodology for the knowledge sharing is very key. And then this methodology need to be very known by all the involved partners. And we think that today Morocco we are suggesting a 3 steps knowledge sharing. First is we need to know the as-is situation in terms of knowledge, local knowledge, and what to share and what to get. And then then to support the reinforcement of the knowledge sharing and the basic assessment of the knowledge catalog, and third, to launch and to have a known program and catalog of what to share and what to ask from partners. And as last example we worked on is a document, a catalog we worked with IDB, where we identified locally in Morocco more than 60 local partners that can provide knowledge and can share knowledge through the framework of South-South and triangular cooperation. So with this, I think we are done. We have some basic recommendation in terms of defining this flagship partners, having international and multilateral founders for different program, getting direct, bilateral, and one-to-one agency, and involving private and public sector as well. So thank you.
Mr. Nuruddin, thank you very much for that. I have a simple question to you. Before joining the government, you have been in the private sector.
Yes.
Huh? Hewlett-Packard.
So you know some. You know some.
So coming with a private sector background, what you would have liked to implement here, some of those good practices which you have seen elsewhere?
Yeah. Okay.
Because you see, I asked that question about project implementation,
okay,
and now I'm giving you a question about the institutional reforms of the top, not at the micro level, but at the macro.
Yeah.
So tell
okay.
us on
so
that.
Honestly,
Your bosses are not listening.
Yeah, okay. So he's coming from private sector as well. So then, but it's a very tricky question. So let's say it simple. Yeah, thank you, thank you. So I'm coming actually from multinational sector, Microsoft namely. But it was the challenge is to make things done properly. While in private sector, we do think we can tolerate some mistakes, which is not necessarily the case in the public institutions. So we need to have some maybe some area of to tolerate some small errors, and this is what make a lot of programs stuck in on one stage. Because we don't move, because there is a lot of sometimes bureaucracy and so on, and this is something to address.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
And we come to our last speaker today, Mr. Karimov, from his Director, International Assistance of Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Dear ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting Azerbaijan to take part in this important conference, and congratulate for excellent organization of the event. In my statement, I would like to give brief information historically about how we became donor country, in what areas we work, and how we contribute to South-South cooperation. Indeed, Azerbaijan represents an interesting example of South-South cooperation. Until early 2000s, we were dependent on foreign aid. We were a new country, regained our independence in 1991. We had territorial claims from Armenia, and we had, as a result of which, we had 1 million refugees and IDPs. But we realized that by the international aid, we wouldn't be able to meet our needs. Despite all these difficulties, we began pursuing prudent social economic policies, integrating all our citizens and resources. We modernized it and strengthened our economic institutions and injected new tools to revive them. We then made huge economic success between 2005 and 2011. According to IMF statistics, the annual growth was 38%, highest among the member states. This allowed us to reduce poverty line from 49%, half the population were in poverty line. So we reduced poverty line from 49% to 5% in 2008. The poverty line is currently around 2 and 3%. Now we are a donor country. We provide financial aid and financial credits to other countries with the lowest possible interest rates. We are the initiator and financer of large-scale inter- and inter-regional infrastructure projects that obviously contribute to regional and international peace and contribution. So far, we have provided order which exceeds $1 billion of US dollars. Azerbaijan International Development Agency is in charge of the providing timely and effective coordination of international assistance to people in need. Azerbaijan International Development Agency, which I'm representing, it incorporates main targets and principles covered by the SDGs in its assistance strategies. On the operational level, we try to focus on policy coherence, better coordination of the actions and programs, effective and efficient expenditure of financial resources to foreign governments. We provide both humanitarian and development assistance. We share the belief that assistance becomes most effective when it's owned by the recipient country and when the assistance is aligned with the national development strategy of the recipient country. We therefore enter into dialogue with our partners to make sure that we correctly understand each other's needs and responsibilities. We support the belief that development assistance should go hand in hand with humanitarian and peace nexus. We recognize the need to facilitate effective translation of development policies into concerted actions through regional global events and exchange of experience through South-South cooperation. So far, my country has provided aid to nearly 100 countries, half of which, even more than half of which, have received our aid between 2 and 7 times. We have helped directly more than 3 million people in the world and 5 million indirectly, while the volume of aid, the number of beneficiary people, and the countries are steadily growing. In the end, I would like to bring just one success story from our projects. We have joined Islamic Development Bank's campaign to fight blindness in more than 10 countries of Africa since 2012, where Azeri ophthalmologists both operated patients but also delivered training on the ground for the local doctors in Africa. As a result, some 56,000 people were operated free of charge, and additionally 300,000 people have passed medical checks. Now the outcome is that now these people are able to work and sustain their families. But the most touching side of this project is that, in one of our humanitarian campaigns within this project, our doctors have operated a woman who gave birth to a baby several months ago. And after the operation, it was for the first time that she could see her baby. That's the end of my presentation, my statement. Thank you very much.
That was one of the most efficient South-South collaboration. You have finished 30 seconds earlier. That's definitely speaks about the articulation you have put in. Mr. Karimov, I just wanted to mention that it's also relatively a young institution.
Exactly.
It's 2011?
Yes.
2011 it came into existence. And more than 90 countries, 100 countries, you have already spread yourself in that.
100.
100. Your website shows 90. Please correct that.
Yeah, we will do that.
So the issue is, the issue is very simple, that again, I'm looking for specialization because many organizations are coming in. Now, since Azerbaijan came out as an independent state out from the Soviet structure, do you think that you have a special advantage in terms of doing South-South cooperation in Central Asia, if not in part of Russia and Ukraine and elsewhere? Do you think you have a comparative advantage?
Yeah, in terms of comparative advantages we have, our comparative advantages cover these areas. It's empowering the women, information communication technologies, demining, public service, e-governance, health, education areas. I must say that during the Soviet period, around 15,000 foreign students have studied in Azerbaijan, and we continue this program currently. So another advantage would be that, despite the fact that we have been established relatively new, we have accumulated large experience in terms of providing international assistance. We have, in terms of legislative basis, we have already passed these steps. And I must say that while exchanging opinion with my colleagues from Central Asia who wish to establish their own development agency, they told that some of them have, lacking in terms of legislative basis that would give them the ability to obtain some kind of boost political and financial resources from the governments. Of course, we are in the position to provide any government, any state with the necessary support in those areas where we have excellent experiences, but not just in our areas, but also in those areas where they want to advance, and we can talk and exchange the experience. We can provide any support. We are open to this.
Okay. Thank you. You want to go to the floor, or I will close?
You can take, let's take two questions. We will have to finish 5 minutes before 3 to prepare the room for the minister and the closing session. So maybe 2 questions we can take?
Yeah, please. How do you prioritize? Because there are a number of them. Will you take it from the north or you will take it from the south? Will you take it from the, which gender you are going to do?
We're going to go left and right and gender balance.
Oh, gender balance, no.
Yeah, please.
Left is south, huh? Oh no, he is not south.
Yeah, he is
Yeah, he's
south.
south there. South, he is south.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm a former high-tech student, so I'm from the south. Thank you very much, because I'd like to compliment RIS and all the organizers, because to have a round table of development cooperation agencies for developing countries is, in my view, the greatest achievement of this conference. So my question is, how do your societies, they see your work abroad? How people in your country? Because same case for my country of origin, Brazil, and there has been a lot of debate on this. So if you could say something. Another point is more a suggestion. Perhaps it's time to have another report or a compendium to bring up a list of all development cooperation agencies. Maybe this has been prepared for BAPA. I was not there, unfortunately. But maybe this is some time is opportune to have a new update the list of agencies, so that we can also learn not only the existence of the agencies, but the work they are doing. And a great compliment to Dima, because a good friend of mine, and it's great to see you here and to see the Palestine is doing this great work.
Good.
Thank you.
You will have to be very far-sighted to see the...
Yeah.
Yeah. Please, sir, carry on.
So knowledge sharing, especially in science and technology, is becoming very, very important. And I can give you a couple of areas. For example, in genetic engineering and biotechnology, 36 years ago, India and Italy pioneered an international center. And a large number of southern countries are members. Now the Solar Alliance is another area where renewable energy technology is being shared. Similarly, there are large-scale scientific experiments like CERN, the LIGO, Square Kilometer Array, 30-meter telescope, where the project is too big for any one country to handle, and they need countries all over the South to also join in. So here is an opportunity for these countries of the South to participate in such knowledge sharing, and not only knowledge sharing, but knowledge discovering activities. And I think the main point also is that nobody is talking about resources. How about a target of about 0.3% of GDP for South-South cooperation? Is that going to create a big storm of disapproval? I doubt it.
And can we just take one last question there? Please, we need time to respond also, the panelists, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Ambassador Sinha. My question is to our speaker from Morocco. I just wanted to know, you talked about how Morocco is assisting a number of African countries, you talk in terms of training and all. Can you give me a percentage in terms of the larger development assistance? I know in terms of foreign policy, Africa is an important part of the President King's foreign policy endeavor. So what is the percentage of development assistance to African countries? And second question is to our speaker from India. And what do you, I spoke in the health session earlier, and there was a question, how are we utilizing the India-Africa Health Fund? I'm not sure whether you can address this. India-Africa Health Fund, where we promised about 50
I suggest that some of your questions you can address to the panelists when they go out for coffee on one-on-one, because we'll not have time for answers. So who will take the questions? Nobody said who. Anyone here? Or Ambassador, you?
No. I have my... One particular issue which has been raised, I think is very pertinent, is that we do make the point that South-South cooperation doesn't base on the same historical and political economic principles of North-South cooperation. That's very well taken. Does it mean that there should not be any targeting of ODA and other things? Should we only look at it as a North-South commitment or obligation, but not necessarily an expression of solidarity between South-South? So if there is a 0.7% of the GNI of the OECD country coming to the, supposedly, although the average is at this moment is 0.34%, and it is decreasing. So can we think of that, and will there be a political support from the larger southern providers in terms of getting a voluntary target in terms of getting over there? Some of us, we thought during the BAPA plus 40 we will be able to get it there, and it would have been a huge political difference in the current development cooperation climate which we are seeing. So this is something, I leave it over here. I'm encouraging people to think about it, and the ownership and the support should come from the larger southern countries who should feel confident enough that they have enough liquidity and in terms of capacity in order to dispense with this kind of resources. I would fully support that particular idea to be discussed further, with not being conclusive.
One question on how societies look at.
First, thank you, Adriano, for your nice words. For this question, actually, to be honest, it's a very hard question for Palestine especially. Some of the people actually are very proud to have a development agency and to be present on the international development cooperation map, and to really share contributions and to show solidarity with other countries from the South. And they are really proud also to enjoy the gift of giving, not only receiving, because we are a recipient country under occupation until now. So on the other hand, there is other people, of course, that highlight the importance of investing inside Palestine and work more maybe in the refugee camps and to improve the development process inside Palestine. So that's why it's a bit, for us, a very hard mission to really try to make that balance between the different institutions that are working inside and between our mandate as the Palestinian International Cooperation Agency, whose mandate is to work to enhance maybe the identity of Palestine, and to express our willingness to help other countries, since we are really in help and in need to feel the fulfillment of our rights of determination and the right of development. Yeah. Thank you.
I think one of the situations when you ask if the citizenship of the country knows or accepts the South-South cooperation. First, most of the South-South countries, we're still in the line of being a demand country. We're still being countries who receive official aid. And the citizenship, the population, they relate cooperation with giving from another part, from cooperation as receiving. in Colombia, although South-South cooperation is part of the foreign affairs public policy, even my agency belongs to the presidential group, to the presidential institutional. We are separate from foreign affairs minister. That's something that I have realized. People, the citizens of our countries, I'm talking about Colombia, they don't know what cooperation means. They are used to receive cooperation and not to offer cooperation. Colombia identifies itself as a dual country. We still demand cooperation, and we offer cooperation, just in two modalities.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if you allow me, I'll just close with some observations on my part. Those who have heard me before, they know that how much I respect my grandmother. And my grandmother always gives me advice how to conclude a session. And she has told me that if the minister is on the way, don't make more than 3 points. And the minister will make the fourth and the others, if not the first one over there. So, colleagues, I will...
Welcome the minister here.
Yeah, we welcome the minister, and I will be...
So we are just concluding, sir, the last session.
Okay. So, as I said, that when minister is coming, don't make more than 3 points, and I'll be very brief on these 3 points on that. Colleagues, I first of all would like to mention that for many of us, we talk about South-South cooperation, and they use the word South in the geographical sense. For me, it is not a geographical issue. For me, the South-South issue is more about power relationship and politics. It is about power relationship and politics with which your South-South cooperation is supposed to bring the balance in the world in the way as it is unfolding over here. Given the situation in the world as it's coming through, the South-South cooperation as a means for balancing power and politics has become even more important. And from that point of view, in that game, it is not an exclusive domain of the South, but it is also a partnership of the enlightened North and all other emerging economies, agencies, and entities over there and beyond the country concept. So that's my first point to you, sir. So let us not get out of this idea that we are dealing with a geographical concept over here. It's a much more complex on that. The second point is that the questions I was asking to all my very esteemed partners and the panelists over here, and as you could see that these questions were coming from the work we currently doing at this moment on the what I call emerging theory of South-South cooperation. Are we coming closer to a theory of South-South cooperation? We have established the principles. We are talking about the institutional structures. We have talked about all the modalities. We are even now talking about the assessment framework. So are we closer now than before in the post-BAPA plus 40 scenario to a theory of South-South cooperation? And the evidence we have just heard from 8 colleagues over here, panelists, give us enough observation in order to make some generalized observation of how the emergence and the evolution and the pathways of South-South cooperation as it goes. So this is this is the way where the think tank role is so critical. The think tanks are supposed to consolidate and make a cohesive, coherent assessment of all the experiences which have been put on the table over here and many more which was out there. My last point was that, colleagues, that this is about new partnership. Now, today we have heard over here the experiences of the government-led international agency. To me, South-South cooperation is not limited to government cooperation. I represent an organization which is the largest NGO in the world called BRAC International. I sit in their board. And that BRAC International does South-South cooperation across Africa in many countries now and expanding like anything over there with innovation for the ultra-poor to come out of the poverty trap. So South-South cooperation in the area, one of the most understated area is that the non-state actors, how they are doing the South-South cooperation, along with the private sector. So Delhi process had been an enlightening beacon for many of us to take the South-South cooperation dialogue discourse forward. And out of the 5 I have attended 4, I conclude by saying I'm really thankful for this opportunity, for this invitation, and to be able to interact on the frontier of the thinking of South-South cooperation, which is taking place in this historic city, and the support which the Indian government provides, and the RIS with my brother Sachin and others are providing over here. So I look forward to the process to go forward and definitely consolidate the knowledge what we have over here and create a new partnership for a better world, which is not only good for South, but also for the North and the rest of the humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. The Minister has come. Thank you very much. I just have to thank my co-chair for his very incisive questions and very decisive rulings on timing, and of course his very arousing sort of conclusion. And I must also congratulate RIS for the thought that went behind this session, which I noticed had a great amount of variety and great balance. Balance both in terms of the geographical spread, but balance in terms of the gender. I noticed that the panel is, both genders are equally represented, down to the rapporteurs are also gender balanced, one lady, one man, except for the co-chair, and I hope my co-chair was not disappointed by not having a different gender sitting with him.
It goes to you too.
One thing that we have noted, the idea that you suggested that among the cooperation we should also look at knowledge discovery, and I think that's a very important point that we all need to take home. One thing which I thought got omitted, nobody talked about the role of education in part of the South-South cooperation, because that is the basic of capacity building. And I must say that India has taken a huge lead. We give over 10,000 scholarships a year in all sorts of basic degree education. And lastly, whatever you do, ultimately you have to spread the word, and dissemination is important. We have taken the lead as RIS in a development cooperation review, which we are trying to make into an international peer-reviewed magazine, and we would request all of you and reach out to you, and many of you have already contributed, but we would want you to contribute to it more often. So thank you very much, sir, and sir, thank you for your patience to our Minister.
Thank you, Ambassador Amar Sinha and Debuda, for leading us through with this very important dialogue with the representatives of the governments of different countries and agencies. I'm thankful to each one of them for participating in this panel. As the Minister has already arrived, I would request Ambassador Sudhir Devre, Chairman of the RIS Research Advisory Council, and Jorge Shadik, the Chair and the Co-Chair of the session, to join us here. And I would request Chairman of RIS, Dr. Mohan Kumar, to bring the Honorable Minister on the dais, please. I would also request all other dignitaries to join us on the dais as we are set now for the valedictory session of this 2-day-long conference. But as I mentioned to you, the Honorable Minister would also be launching the Young Scholars Forum and the University Think Tank Connect. So 2 new initiatives after this session that would be very important for the days to come. The University Grants Commission and the Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR, they both are partnering. And then tomorrow, of course, we have the workshop on the impact assessment framework.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your kind attention, please? After 2 days of very intensive and very wide-ranging discussions on the topic of South-South cooperation, the conference is drawing to a close. Needless to say that the extraordinary range of topics as well as the depth of discussions has really enriched our knowledge of this very important subject, which has been very close to the heart of not only RIS, which has kindly organized this conference, but also to India and to most countries, developing countries, which are gathered here today. Well, we heard in the earlier session, the former chairman of this last session told us about the theoretical framework which has been discussed, the evolution of this concept post-BAPA plus 40, and the new initiatives which have been discussed during this conference, which are going to be announced very soon. And to do that, we are really honored that we have the presence of Honorable Minister of State of Youth Affairs, Sports, and Minister of State for Minority Affairs of the country, Shri Kiren Rijiju. As you all know that he is one of the most dynamic ministers. He held the portfolio of the Ministry of Home Affairs in the past, and now he is entrusted with a variety of very important portfolios. We are awaiting, sir, to hear from you on this occasion and guide us on this very important concept of South-South cooperation. India, which actually started in some ways this concept way back in 1964 with the program called the India Technical Economic Cooperation, called ITEC, through which thousands and thousands of experts, scholars, officials, both from India as well as from these countries, from developing countries, have interacted with each other and benefited to their mutual advantage. And this, sir, extends to all fields, including youth affairs, sports, and the wide range of development cooperation. So, may I first request you to kindly share your thoughts, and after that we will ask all other speakers to share their views. Will you have the time to first speak or listen to the others? And
I would prefer to listen
to others?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I have come here to just make my presence, keeping in view the importance of this particular conference. So, not being a diplomat, I will not be giving a thought-provoking ideas or my experiences, but I'll also make just few remarks, maybe later when I get the opportunity to hear out from the experts who can contribute much more substantially.
Oh, fine. Very well. We would first like to greet the Honorable Minister with a bouquet of flowers, and I'll request the Chairman of RIS to do so. My Honorable Co-Chair, would you like to say a few words?
First, I would like to express my gratitude for being co-chair of this session. But we came here, as I mentioned in the first presentation I made, to hear, to listen. Because as it was mentioned, Buenos Aires Plus 40 opened a lot of new avenues that were foreclosed politically for many years. And I get to this last session with the impression that a lot of progress has been made already after these spaces were open, and there is room for significantly more to be achieved shortly. I will just say some words later, but as co-chair, I think in this particular session, we're going to listen to a summary and also proposal for the way forward, which we really look forward to see implemented, and you can count on our institutional support.
And in addition, we really want to listen from you, Minister. Your reputation has gone beyond the borders of India, and your work can also serve as a source of inspiration to other countries. So at this stage, I just wanted to leave it there and listen to the rest of the program that will make valuable contributions.
Thank you. I think we'll first request Director General of RIS, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, to give us a presentation of this whole Delhi Process 5, its outcome and its subsequent steps.
Yeah. Thank you, Ambassador Devre. Respected Minister, as we briefed you, there are around 53 countries that have participated in 6 plenary sessions, 3 parallel sessions, and we have around 150 participants who are here with us since yesterday. There are 16 international institutions and around 80 students who have participated. We have also been launching the Young Scholars Forum, where we have invited 48 participants from different countries. And there is a parallel exhibition also going on, which Piyush Goyal inaugurated yesterday. And this is bringing forward the projects being delivered by different agencies. So this is a meeting where we have academics, where we have diplomats, we have formal institutions that are linked with development cooperation, and we also have international agencies. So it's a big sort of conglomeration of actors who are bringing in heft to the idea of partnership among developing countries. I would just go through some broad points in next 5 to 7 minutes, which are bringing in the highlight of the discussions. I'm not getting into the full report. My colleagues are putting it together, and by evening, I hope it would be on the website of RIS. So the first and foremost is the idea of taking cognizance of changing global economic environment and importance of partnership among developing countries. A session where we had Piyush Goyal with us, and he highlighted which today's media has captured in terms of the position on multilateralism and reforms that we need in multilateralism, as more and more efforts are now on for unilateralism, protectionism, and nationalism. So from that, the challenges that are coming into the global order is something that Prime Minister Shri Modi has been highlighting, not only at G20 and other platforms, but also at the bilateral meetings. Even in Bhutan, he mentioned about how important it is for countries to have endogeneity built up in their process. And when he inaugurated the RuPay card, the idea was that the developing countries should go for their own payment gateways. So South is also extremely critical in terms of fostering development and help achieve sustainable development goals. The idea of South is very critical to peace and prosperity. And Honorable Minister, we had yesterday I would say, very stimulating discussion on Afghanistan and role of various actors in Afghanistan. We also discussed issues related to a rise of China and India and southern countries and their contribution in global norm setting. And I remember your contribution in Sendai framework and disaster resilience when you were Minister of State for Home Affairs in the previous government. It is absolutely essential for developing countries to have the desired disaster preparedness and contribute in terms of reducing their dependence on the ODA and associated processes. The second theme that we picked up is about the multi-stakeholder, multiple actor approach, and the idea is to go beyond the government-to-government partnership. We need to bring in people, we need to bring in stakeholder, and how do we expand. So yesterday we had detailed discussion about the role civil society may play in this, the role that private sector may play, and what kind of role the global foundations are playing. the positive and of course the negative. So we discussed all those issues. The third issue that we picked up was about triangular cooperation between a developing country, a developed country, in a least developed country or another developing country. And there we had a lot of exciting ideas. My colleague from Argentina brought out this point that South-South cooperation is not equivalent to triangular cooperation, because the principles that govern South-South cooperation are very different from the one that probably may be applied to triangular cooperation. So national strategy has to be stimulated as we are thinking of issues that are related to triangular cooperation, and we would have to move forward. Prime Minister Modi again has triggered a major initiative in India since 2015, when we have entered in partnerships with Japan in the Indo-Pacific. We have also entered in partnership with Saudi Arabia to have hospitals in Africa, and we are also working very closely with UK in the Commonwealth countries, which Prime Minister inaugurated when he was in London. So these are some of the other initiatives which India is contributing to through several issues and initiatives. Then is the program which is very much close to India's own initiative on financial inclusion. And as Honorable Minister is aware, the government of India has taken several measures for financial inclusion, and yesterday in the session it was brought out that some 445 million small and medium enterprises globally are not using financial services in the developing countries, and 1.7 billion people are outside the ambit of financial inclusion. So what is it that India's own experience may bring forward, and what kind of exchange of information, details and institutional architecture that is needed can be shared by developing countries. India has also played a significant role in shaping the SSC, as have all the other developing countries have, and this is important in terms of how we go forward on identifying the parameters where they are contributing. And from that perspective, this morning, for almost 2 hours, we had a long discussion on how to assess impact of such interventions and on what parameters this should be covered. We had excellent discussion. Professor Li Xiaoyin from China and the chairman of the network of Southern Think Tank is very much on this panel, as is Professor Anuradha Chenoy, chairperson of the Forum for Indian Development Cooperation. They all in their interventions identified the plurality of the South-South cooperation there. We had a session discussing on Industrial Revolution 4.0, bringing in the issues related to skill development and its relevance for the youth and for them to cope up with the new global changes that are happening. We had two very important sessions, one on agriculture and the other on health. It came out clearly that the South-South cooperation and its share in the global trade in diagnostics and in vaccines has multiplied 11 times in last 10 years. And this is a major contribution that they are making. The session on agriculture was also very substantive. They explored the idea of value chains for agriculture produce that is going wasted in several of the developing countries, how they can work together. The last session, Honorable Minister, that you heard Ambassador Amar Sinha and Professor Debopriya Bhattacharya summarized in your presence, largely discussed issues related to development agencies in the South and their contribution, the impact of their work on promoting South-South cooperation. I would stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi. You have really given a very comprehensive survey of what all was discussed in the last 2 days. And we have here with us in the panel Professor Li Xiaoyin, from Chairman of the NEST from China. We are really looking forward to hearing your comments on Dr. Chaturvedi's
Thank you.
Which he discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Diwali. I very quickly, and it's also observation, and the conference has made, for my observation, a great contribution to strengthen the both concept and the operation of the South-South cooperation. So this is just very very general, and specifically I like to also offer my observation in 3 areas. First one is that role of South-South cooperation in terms of partnership, I would say, for this conference, the importance of role of partnership in South cooperation and triangle cooperation to ensure the multilateralism, as Sachin just mentioned, is well recognized during the conference. So that is first, I think, the strong linkage that conference participants discussed widely, that South cooperation and triangle cooperation will make contribution to safeguard and maintain the multilateralism. So that is first. And secondly, the significance of South-South cooperation and under new global context is well manifested. This is something which we see the continuous debate in the different areas, like education, health, and industrialization, knowledge sharing. And the scope and scope of the South-South cooperation, and as well as the understanding to extent that how South-South cooperation will continue to make contribution to global development. So this is a very important area. Third area is that look at the accountability issue of accountability issues, and this conference has made great contribution to the issue of measurement, continued debate on the framework and template, particularly in the methodology and the process, and this will help. The South-South cooperation and the triangle cooperation go into deeper, looking for impact, look at the impact and the quality. We talk about the quality, all these issues. I would generally speaking, I would say in those 3 areas, this conference has made great contribution, and will continue. I would say will continue to help us to undertaking both conceptually and operationally to strengthen our work in the social cooperation, both in the policy, strategic policy level and the operation practical level. And the daily social cooperation process now has become a critical and very important global platform. If we see the countries presented here, number of countries presented here, and the wide range of participants from different spectrums of the professional areas, we see clearly that daily social cooperation now is becoming a global platform for discussing, debating, and sharing our understanding, our knowledge, and our experiences in the field of social cooperation. And from our discussions last 2 days, I would say last 2 days, the discussion itself has gone beyond southern countries and has actually moved beyond the narrow scope of South-South cooperation and has gone to a very clearly global development issues, global development strategies and policies and everything. So, and in the end, I would like to conclude my observation by saying that I will continue to be the supporter of this process, and I will actually convey our message from the conference back to China, and to share this outcome with more Chinese scholars, policymakers for this one. Thank you very much for this.
Professor Lee, thank you very much. You made a very critical and important observation that South-South cooperation is now very critical to global platform, and it has gone beyond the narrow confines of South-South cooperation to global developmental issues and their understanding. I think this is very important. I think we need to bear that in mind. We have with us Mr. Sheshadri Chari. He is also with RIS and a thinker and a commentator in India. And I would like to request him now to share his views with us. You want to move here? Okay.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, Shri Kiran Rijiju, Honorable Chairman, Mr. Mohan Kumar, Dr. Mohan Kumar, sorry, thank you. DG and my friends on the dais, and ladies and gentlemen. We have been, practically our eyes and ears are full of South-South for the last 2 days. So it's time for us to say no more of it. But you can imagine we at the RIS have been going through this for the last 2 months almost. And we have another 2 days to go. So real sympathies should be lying with us. But it's always, it's also very logical and natural, because if you see the paradigm shift that has taken place as far as the global economic parameters are concerned, the most important three out of the 4 most grown-up economies, the important economies, are on this side of the hemisphere, the southern side of the hemisphere. China, India, Japan, in that order. And they are not only competing with one another, but also cooperating with one another. That is the beauty as far as the economic growth engines of South-South cooperation countries are concerned. So it's no longer a giver-taker relationship. It is no longer the developed and the non-developed economies. It is no longer the proverbial quote-unquote haves and have-not economy. It's an economy of cooperation, it's an economy of competition, but a very positive, friendly, developmental competition. So that is all the more reason why we should be more and more engaging with South-South cooperation, not only from its theoretical point of view, but also from the practical point of view. That is what we have, as Professor Sachin Chaturvedi pointed out, the 2 days of this seminar. If you see, the points that, and the sessions that we had designed were all meant to highlight these aspects. So the most important aspects that I would like to flag here are, like we all, of course, discussed and agreed that we have a very, very strong conceptual background as far as South-South cooperation is concerned. But as far as the institutional framework is concerned, we all agree that we are on a very weak wicket. So conceptually strong, institutional framework weak. And that also brings us to the next issue of framing certain broad collaborative framework. The problem is we don't have a definite definition of South-South cooperation, and that also is the advantage. It works out to our advantage. So what is South-South cooperation? It is everything that it is not. So we are convenient, we are happy, we become more inclusive. So whoever wants to be part of the bandwagon are most welcome. And there is always a one-way entry into the South-South cooperation framework. There is no exit route. That is all the more convenient for those who come in late. So this is all how the structure seems to be working. And this is also important because given the trade parameters that are working now trade, economy and commerce are no longer tools of just economics, but trade relationships have become power balance equation. So the more the power balance equation it becomes, the rules of the game change. And more importantly, the winner in this trade equation, or what we call the power equation, the winner is not the one who follows the rules, but the winner is one who frames the rules. So where are we as far as framing the rules are concerned? So we also discussed, and I think if at all we want to progress from here, we will have to really define the and streamline the areas of cooperation. Ambassador Amar Sena mentioned about education. We have not been able to really tackle this issue of education in these last 2 days, but we have an independent session beginning after another 1 hour. We will be beginning to discuss on that issue. Another thing is, of course, the financial structures and rules that we have to think about and form. And the most important issue is, of course, the issue of institutional framework. Ambassador Trimurti mentioned about the institutional framework formula, whether we should have one or we should not have one. If at all we should have one, what could be the parameters of the institutional framework? So these are all some of the areas where we will have to really start working together once again. So this is not the concluding session or the valedictory session. Actually, this is the beginning of the next issue or the next session of South-South cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chari. I think what you said is true. It is, in a way, beginning of the new session and conference, because what you said, that this whole concept is conceptually strong, but institutionally weak. I think we did reflect in the last 2 days on this very topic, and we will continue to reflect again in subsequent discussions.